Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sovereign Lovestream.
Hi, happy Sovereign Sunday. Thank you for joining us this week. We have an amazing episode today.
I'm so excited about this. I'm actually nervous doing my own show because of how excited I am about this episode.
Yes, he's been talking nonstop about it, and I'm really excited too. I think this is a really great, amazing topic, so we hope you guys enjoy it. We have a very special guest. We've been talking about having special guests on the show, and it's been a while since our last guest. So, do you want to go ahead and introduce this week's topic?
Absolutely. So we have here with us today, I'm so honored to have Adam Jackson of the Sacred Sons. And he is our esteemed guest today. Thank you so much for joining us, Adam. I'm going to unmute your mic. So there you go.
Thank you, Danny and Vanessa, for having me on. I feel like our relationship has been weaving, over the past several months now. And it's beautiful to see you guys together as a couple and to be able to have this conversation together.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I just want to give Adam a little bit of an introduction. Adam has been, for the last several months, a mentor to me, a brother, a friend. I have had such profound and deep experiences with him in brotherhood over the last few months that we've known each other. And I'm almost speechless with how he has impacted my life in just a few short months, and how the Sacred Sons, and we're definitely going to get into that, how the Sacred Sons have impacted my life. But first, Adam, why don't you give us a little introduction to who the Sacred Sons are and what you do?
Yeah, Sacred Sons is an organization that is dedicated to growth, transformation, and healing of men in our communities. I am one of 3 co-founders of Sacred Sons. And really, our mission came forth out of a need. We began this in 2018, coming out of the Me Too movement, coming out of a time where shadows of institutions and those in power are really coming out and coming into the light. And so Sacred Sons is our offering. It's our contribution to the collective of what we can do to help men heal, transform, and grow through the challenges of today. And, as we know, there are many challenges. And, one of the things that we focus on is brotherhood and connection. It's really simple. So many of us are isolated, coming out of 2020, literally isolated, but even before that, isolated in our jobs and our relationships, without much depth of community. And what I mean by that is, and I can just speak for myself, when I turned around 30 years old, I kind of looked around and said, oh man, I don't have the same depth of connection with other men around me. And it's something that's vital to my soul. It's something that I really craved. And I kind of started to ask the questions why that was. And it's like, yeah, some friendships are no longer serving, and that's fine. And, I'm working long hours. I have 2 kids now, like these kind of things add up. And still, the desire for authentic masculine relating is so needed and is so vital to our communities. It's my belief that men have great impact on our planet, on our communities, and obviously on our families. So let's get men the support that they need through brotherhood, through connection, through counsel, through genuine, authentic relating, period. Danny, we've talked about the masks, the many masks that men and women wear out in the world, either to feel safe or to make others feel safe from them. And we need spaces that allow us to remove the mask, to remove the mask of perfectionism, to remove the mask of I can do it all alone, and to really authentically relate from that place, from that soul level. And so that's what we do at Sacred Sons. We have a plethora of offerings, which I could talk about later, but primarily we do our work through two forms, and that's in-person retreats and trainings and online courses.
And I just want to speak to brotherhood and connection being the cure, right? This is something that I really experienced in a really profound way. Now, just for our audience, I've done one of the online courses, actually
the
2
embodied
online
masculine
and the masculine course, the Embodied Masculine course, and I did the in-person Maui Prime retreat, which there's no substitute. The online content is amazing, but there's no substitute for being in person with other brothers.
Can I say something about that real quick, Danny?
Sure.
I like to say, because the online programming is powerful and it's like a really good microdose, but when you come in person to one of the retreats or trainings, it's a full dose.
That is accurate for sure. Accurate. For me, you know, I have close relationships with men, or I thought I did. I had relationships that I considered to be pretty close, but this simple container that the Sacred Son sets up of just all of us coming and making the agreement that we're just going to be radically vulnerable. We're not going to sugarcoat anything. We're going to take off our masks. And within 5 minutes of meeting the other men that were on the Maui Prime retreat, we were already sharing like deep, dark secrets, like stuff that we probably did not share with anybody else in our lives. I know, at least for me, you know, I definitely shared things that I had never shared with anyone else, even my own biological brother. And the power of that, the power of just being totally yourself and not being afraid that you're going to be judged, because that's the agreement we're making. We're going to be honest with each other and we're not going to judge each other. We're just going to listen and empathize with each other. And through the course of that retreat, there's 10 other participants, and then there's a bunch of facilitators. In the course of that retreat, every single man, including the facilitators, reflected a part of myself back to me, something that I had shame about. But because they were reflecting it, I could have compassion for them. And then it clicked. Oh, if I can have compassion for someone else who struggles with the same thing I judge myself for, then I can have compassion for myself. And so there's like 15 or 16 men total on that retreat. So like I shed shame about literally like 16 different topics. And at the end of that retreat, I felt like a different person, or a more authentic person, like truly getting back to who I really am by just stripping all of that shame, all of those masks away. It was I might start crying about it. It was such a profound experience for me. And like, I've been telling everybody I know about it because I want everybody to experience this. It is so beautiful and so powerful. And so like, brotherhood is the medicine and connection is the cure. It sounds like a catchy phrase, but it really is like the truth. I experienced that in such a powerful way.
You know, it sounds catchy, but it came from an authentic space. When we first said brotherhood is the medicine, it wasn't one person. It was a group of people saying, wow, like we feel like we're in ceremony right now, and brotherhood is the medicine that we're all on together. So even that saying came from an authentic space. And, you know, you touched on a couple pieces that are very important. One of which is making the agreement that we're in a space of non-judgment. You know, there's not a lot of places out there for us to fully express ourselves without the fear of judgment. And I think that's something that holds us back as individuals, and then, you know, as a collective. And so making that agreement, like, can we make this a space of non-judgment? Can we truly be vulnerable with each other? Can we be honest? And so in the simplicity in the container is so vital, because I find the most impactful and effective things are often the most simple. And yeah, so making those agreements, those initial agreements, we also agree to listen to one another. We're not there to overpower, to teach, or to talk over someone. When someone's in a vulnerable place, we're listening. We're in a place of listening. And what you touched on, which is the magic of the brotherhood medicine, is that it's not always the man in the center of the circle, so to speak, who's getting the healing, who's receiving the healing. When we're doing this work in group, in brotherhood, we are all healing together from the share of the man in the center. And that's the magical piece that I feel like so many of us miss out on because of the armor that we wear out in the world. We wear so much armor, and we're judging others because we're judging ourselves, and you know how that whole thing plays out. And when you get into that space and we really open up, true healing can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I experienced it, and I did not, as powerful as the online courses were, I did not it exceeded my expectations like immediately within the first day. Before the retreat even started, I was already texting her, telling her, oh my God, just meeting these men the day before the retreat started, I was like, this is already worth it. I'm already connecting and just feeling so much like love and validation just from people being like, oh, you know, that's cool. Like listening to me, actively listening, right? Like it's something that we don't experience in the everyday world. And it's sad, but you know what? Now we're bringing that home.
Yeah. And it's important that both men and women find these spaces. And in my life, you know, when I was going through my most difficult challenges, separation through relationship, things like that, I was like, damn, who do I call? And I'm a part of many communities, but I still had that inkling, like, I don't know exactly who to turn to here for mentorship, to know if I'm, you know, making the right decisions, to know if I'm like able to actually honestly see the reflections that I'm getting from others in my life. And so I set out to create that space along with my partners, Aubert and Jason McKenzie. And we all bring our own gifts to what Sacred Sons is becoming. And I say is becoming because it's unfolding, and we're adding new offerings, including a youth program that we can talk about as well. But, you know, I felt if I need a space like this, I know that there's other men who could benefit from this space. And when we, you know, in the very beginning, in the early days, we said, can we get 30 men to show up for a retreat like this? Can we pull guys together to buy in, to believe that we can do this together? And looking to get 30 men, we had 75 show up, and we were like, this is needed. Mm-hmm. This is truly needed. And, you know, I'm not so big on statistics, but, you know, male suicide is way up, especially through the pandemic. Addiction is way up. Overdose statistics are way up, especially in men and in young women. But, you know, like this is how we felt we could give back and contribute to the healing and transformation of masculinity on this planet, because it's needed. And we can look at the news. You can look to many places right now to understand the need for this. And right now it's about the willingness of men to step up. And I want to say this to you, Vanessa, because this is where I'm really coming from. The women and the children are asking the men of this planet to step the heck up.
Yes.
I don't know if y'all caught. So to step the heck up, take this planet back, take our power back as men, as leaders, as sovereign beings on this planet. You know, those in power, they are also men, and they are men who can be corrupted. They're men with their own misalignments. And I pray that they do their inner work. And so, you know, I'm going to continue to bring this work to as many people as we can, because this is a long game. And the evolution of masculinity, this is a big thing to claim, to take on, you know. But what that really looks like is being here for the long run. And so it may not be directly the Koch brothers, let's say, but what happens when their grandkids come to a Sacred Sons event and get cracked open? You know, like think about it on this level. And then aside from that level, if one, like I love to say this because people often ask me, does this work really impact the planet? And if one man goes home and he's more present with his kids, he's more loving and tender and listening to his wife, then that's enough. That's enough. We don't have to shift the entire planet at once. This is about impacting men in their hearts and in their homes.
And there's a quote, I believe, by Mother Teresa that says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Boom. And this is exactly what you guys are doing. You're teaching these men to go home, be present, show up for their families. And it's just amazing to see the transformation. You know, I was telling you earlier, when I showed up in Maui, I was like, wow. I mean, he was super excited from before, like he said earlier, as soon as he got there, he was texting me and he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't believe it. He was like crying. He's like, I was crying within the first like hour. I don't know. He's like, it's just so amazing. And he's like, I'm having revelation after revelation. And it was so beautiful. And when I showed up, there's a part of me that was like, wow, it's the new and improved Danny, but it's not a new Danny. It's the real Danny. It's the authentic Danny that's no longer no longer has the need to put on those masks, especially for his partner, right? You know, sometimes we love people, we love our partners, but we're also afraid, and we put up these masks, we put up these walls, and it's in an effort to protect ourselves from getting hurt, but we're also shielding ourselves from that true authentic love. And so as he removes all of these masks, our love is just like a million times better. I mean, we've been engaged for 3 years, talking about getting married for 3 years, and it just happened from one day to the next where we were like, yeah, let's do it. Tomorrow we're on the beach with Kale, and he's performing the most beautiful, sacred ceremony we could have ever asked for. And it was perfect because that love was flowing through so strongly without anything to block it, without anything to filter any of those emotions. And it's so beautiful. And I was so happy because I have seen that Danny. I know that Danny was there. I've always known that Danny was there. And it, you know, as women, sometimes it's frustrating because we are able to see our men, and then we wonder why they're hiding from us. Why are you hiding from us? I'm right here. I'm ready to love you. There are so many women that are ready to just love unconditionally, and men are afraid. It's really what it is. They're scared, and like you said, there's so many men out there that don't know who to turn to, don't know who to be vulnerable with. It's scary. This world has not been easy for the men at all. I mean, it hasn't been easy for women either, but for men, it has shoved you guys down and said, shut up about your emotions. You can't feel that. You can't say that. You can't be affectionate with other men. You can't hug other men. One of the most beautiful things for me in Maui was the day before we came back. We were at a get together with a few of the other guys, and Danny hadn't seen them in a few days, and it was like they were all just like hugging each other, and they were the most beautiful, amazing hugs I had ever seen men share. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody was like, I'm sorry, Vanessa, but we all fell in love with each other during this retreat. I was like, I am here for it. Yes, this is what we need. We need men to love each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the healing work.
That's the healing work. Absolutely. And man, the hugs are real. The hugs are real. The smiles are real. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. I want to say one thing. You know, it's not been easy for men, certainly, but as men, it is our responsibility to step up. Men are not victims here. And patriarchy has impacted women and children greatly. And patriarchy has also impacted men in a negative way. Okay. So that's just like the foundation. And in my perspective, it's the role and responsibility of men to create a safe environment for women and children. That's just a baseline. So that's what we're working towards on a grand scale, and on an individual component, like I said, in every heart and every home of every man that we touch.
Yes, and you guys are doing an amazing job at that.
But the other piece, and I guarantee you, when you were saying that about the hugs and about the crying, and within an hour, there's a lot of men who will hear that and be very, very nervous about what that means. Be very nervous about being touched by another man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a guy probably watching right now. I wouldn't hug that guy in 10 minutes. Okay. And this is a product of our conditioning. And once we become vulnerable, once we can recognize that we all have similarities, that we all have kind of gone through these similar issues, and it's like the story's different, but the same set of emotions ring true. The shame, Danny, that you spoke of, like, how do we clear that? And I want to say the work that we do is not explicitly therapy. This is not talk therapy. This is ritual connection. This is ceremony. This is deepening into honesty. You know, so many of us, not just men, but so many of us walk around lying to ourselves straight up. And so when can we get into a space where it's safe to be honest, where it's safe to let it all flow? And I'll say it like this. In order for a man to truly have that experience, I feel it is best for him to be held by other men. If to really go to those depths, and you know, men are walking around holding a lot. I've seen a lot, so I can say that. And so when you get into a space where you can be held by other men, you know, I mean, literally held, but and I also mean, you know, figuratively held in that space. Like, wow, these guys really see me. These are things that don't come out in relationships. They don't come out at your job. They don't even come out with your best friends of decades.
Yeah.
Because those walls were built over decades.
Yeah.
And so when we get into these spaces and make those agreements and drop in, all of that stuff can melt away. And we literally talk about like shifting energy out of the body. And there's a somatic experience that happens. And I saw it on your face, Danny, in Maui. From the first day you came in to the last day, you obviously you got a little color because we were outside a lot and in fresh water and eating good food. But man, your eyes were raised, your smile was glowing, you know, like everything about you was really radiating because of that space that we created together. Yeah, so yeah. It's there and it's available, and I feel it's one of the most profound ways to get for men to get healing.
So for the men who are watching and maybe don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about inner work or holding space, or maybe they don't know the lingo, let's talk about a little bit what does this look like practically? It's not talk therapy. So then what is it?
Right. So yeah, let's start out with holding space. And there's a lot to holding space. These are words that, yeah, maybe a little on the spiritual side. So when we get together, first of all, we set the container. This is also the lingo. We should get clear. We stand in a circle. I'll make it really simple. We stand in a circle. We make some eye contact. This is another basic thing that a lot of people are going through their lives without doing. Making some eye contact, really taking another person in. Can you see yourself in them? Can you acknowledge, you know, that they have greatness and that they have weakness? Simple stuff like that. And then we make those agreements, the non-judgment, the active listening, the I statements, and owning our stories. So we're making agreements as we drop in. And, you know, ultimately what we're doing is stripping the armor away to getting to the truth of whatever someone is holding. And many times someone will come on this weekend knowing what it is that they're holding on to. Maybe they have just gotten out of a long relationship. Maybe they have cheated in a relationship. You know, on this past trip, we had a brother who had just got out of, who had just gone through cancer remission, and so he basically was like, I just went through the most powerful time of his life, and he was looking for a place to unpack it. And so men come with all types of things, and we really just are creating a space for that to come out. And that looks different ways. So we have different pillars of the organization. And so they're physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And so we have processes, we have activities for all of these pillars. I'm trying to think what we did with you for the physical pillar. You got the primal reset with Pasha and Maui.
That I have to tell you, for me personally, we've been doing a lot of we've been in the shadow work path or on the shadow work path for the last several years. And so we have invested a lot in our emotional and spiritual healing. But the body is something that I have neglected, and I did not make the connection between the body and trauma. And Pasha and his teachings are amazing, but just doing the physical exercises that he was showing us, I forget the name of it. What's it called?
Functional patterns.
Functional patterns. It was integral. First of all, we did the 45-minute like dance session where we just danced. And so at that point
you gotta love that ecstatic dance. just real quick. So the healing stuff, like everything I'm saying, we don't know when it's gonna pop off for someone. And so just getting a man back into his body, barefoot on the earth, and telling him to move his body freely. A lot of guys haven't done that in a very, very long time.
I haven't. Okay. I haven't. And so by that point, I already knew shame was the issue that I was dealing with. Honestly, I subconsciously knew it coming in day one when we did the opening ceremony.
Sure.
But by that time, I knew shame. So I'm like, okay, shame is carried in the lower chakra areas. So when I started to do the dance, I was concentrating on gyrating my lower areas so I could really work it out. Then we did the functional patterns work. And I know that that doing those exercises was integral in helping release some of that stuck energy so that I could release that shame. And I would have never thought prior to that physical exercise or physical movement is so crucial to releasing emotional trauma.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned during the primal reset that day that we did that stuff.
Yeah, I feel for both men and women, it's imperative that we get into our bodies. We spend so much time in our heads, you know, from an early age, we're in school and told to memorize lots of things. So we are put into our heads and we're told to sit and listen and be in our heads. And it's really important as adults that we get back into our bodies and start moving that energy, because that shame, that guilt, that anger, that rage that's being suppressed, kind of in the way that you showed with your body, it's like, oh, pushing all that down. Ultimately, it will come out sideways. And we see it come out sideways in all types of ways, whether that's verbally, whether that's physically. It comes out in all kinds of ways. And so getting into our body and actually feeling like, okay, I'm being asked to dance and move my body freely, but I'm stuck. Okay, where are you stuck in your body? Let's start there. So that's how we would go. That's how we would drop in from there. And if you're in functional patterns with Posh and you're sitting on your glute on a coconut and it's bringing up some emotion from a childhood injury when you fell in front of all the kids and everyone laughed and you just had that memory pop up, boom. What's that about? And when I say what's that about, I'm not shaming you. I'm not guilty. I'm going to circle all the brothers up around you. And then we're going to go there and we're going to move that out of your body right now. And guess what? After we do it, after we confront that shadow, you called it shadow work. So after we confront that shadow or whatever that piece is, guess what we're going to do? We're going to celebrate you because you moved through it, because you chose to go through it. And a lot of men out here have not been celebrated in a long time. And men are powerful. I like to say this at retreats, but I love men. Men are so creative and doers and can build and have empathy and are nurturing in our own ways. You know what I mean? Like men are really dope. And it's important that we celebrate that. It's
yeah, there's a lot of resistance to masculinity right now. You know, the cancel culture in the wake of Me Too, and obviously there's a lot of wounded men that are wounding women.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm a supporter of Me Too, and like you said before, of us taking our responsibility seriously to provide a safe space for women to be able to move in freedom without fear of our reaction or these things. And so, you know, but masculinity gets a bad rap right now. And so, you know, there's a conflation between masculinity and what's referred to as toxic masculinity, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what healthy, balanced masculinity looks like.
Sure. You know, so this idea of healthy masculinity, I've said it a lot myself. And what I've been coming around to is that what we should be speaking around is honest masculinity. And what I mean by that is getting to the vulnerable places that we can actually.
Oops.
Am I still there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
So getting to the places where we can remove some of that quote unquote toxic energy. Let's just call it toxic energy. And let's say that's a real thing. The way that we like to say it is misalignment. And what that can look like is exactly what we've been saying. So you're carrying some shame, some trauma, maybe from a breakup, maybe from abandonment, like an abandonment wound, really deep stuff. You get in a relationship, your girl decides to leave, and it's going to come out lashing. It comes out sideways. It comes out in, let's say, it comes out in verbal abuse. How can we get through that? How can we pull a man into a center of a circle and go not back just to this lashing out that he just had, but back to that deep wound that he has faced around abandonment, because it's not been looked at in a long time and it's deep. And so we create that structure, that space for that to come out. And so what we don't want to have happen is for it to come out in spaces that it's not allowed to be seen. And so if we're being honest, so I'm coming back to honest masculinity. If we're being honest, yeah, you do have that rage. Yeah, man. Like I feel that. I feel what's coming from you. So can you let it out here? Can we move that energy out here where it's safe? So this is how I feel we get to healthy masculinity. And again, we have to look at it from all fronts. It's not just like sitting in therapy. It's like we're looking at it on the physical. How are you taking care of your body? What are we taking in? We look at it on the emotional, like, we look at it in all types of ways. So I kind of want to pass it back to you, Danny, to comment on like the holistic nature of the experience.
Yeah.
It's one thing if I say it, but it's like,
yeah.
if I start to talk about, how I'm going to bring a guy to a retreat and we're going to talk about spiritual healing, it's one thing if I say it, but there's a spiritual element that is at play here. And although it's not dogmatic and, we're not religious in that way, there's a spiritual element to human relating and being in connection with each other and with the land that is really vital for us to heal and for us to detoxify.
While you were talking about that, what I was thinking about was the Forge. Yeah. And just quickly, the Forge is kind of like this area where we all get together and we deal with some of these deep traumas. And so for one of the brothers, and it's the experience is tailored to however the brother who's experienced the trauma, who is expressing the trauma, is the one that gets to decide how it comes out. So one of the brothers was dealing with anger. And so they put on some boxing gloves. Kale put on his boxing gloves, the facilitator, and they had some boxing. And he was able to kind of get out some of that rage in a healthy and controlled way instead of it bubbling over and turning into a barroom brawl, right? Yeah. If we focus and come together and meet as men, because you know what? Vanessa and I have done so much healing work together. But it's like you said, there is something to be said for being with other men. And I think that there are things that are appropriate to share and to express to your partner. And there are things that are appropriate to share and express to other men, that we can understand things about each other that maybe our women can't.
So there's a big piece here that you're touching on, and it's a big word. And that word is accountability. And when a man is accountable to no one but himself, I'll say it like this: he cannot be trusted. Mm-hmm. And so as men, we need accountability to and from other men. This is something that is very healthy. This is a way that we push past some of those ideas around toxic masculinity, because when men are in authentic and honest relationship, we call that stuff out in each other. And that's the space where it should come out. Like you're saying, Danny, that's not a space. His office isn't a good place for the anger to come out. His home is not a good place for the anger to come out. Maybe even his jujitsu gym, although that's great. And that's like a deeply impactful experience. Maybe he can't go all the way there. So we give the space for that brother to go all the way, to clear it all the way out. And I'm saying these things like clearing energy or moving deep stuff. But I feel that's what it takes. And I'm only saying that from my own experience of moving my own stuff, and really getting out of my own way and calling in, you asked what are some values of healthy masculinity: accountability, integrity, honesty, acceptance, listening. As men, we do a lot of talking, we do a lot of doing, and less so listening and being. And so we practice that. And so these weekends, this is our training ground to go and practice this stuff. And, Vanessa, you're saying upon receiving Danny, you felt the impact of his presence. Presence is like the biggest key to a lot of this stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's how we can transmute what's out there is called toxic masculinity into what I'm calling honest masculinity. And even if we, like, let's say that I used the example of abandonment, that abandonment piece is still going to be there for that man. But what happens when he goes home and he's able to be honest with his partner and say, there's a piece of myself that came up this week and I never really shared that with you. And like, maybe it'll allow you to know me better. You know how many women actually would love to hear that from their men?
Yes.
Just to know their men a little bit better. But as men, we're taught, no, that vulnerability will she'll run away from you. But it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, that's the huge fear. Go ahead,
we used to have this this very same conversation in our relationship about like things that Danny would hide from me early on in our relationship, because he said, if she knows who I am, she's not going to want me. She's not going to love me. And for me, it was like, I'm ready to love you. Just show me everything. I want to see all of you. I'm willing to love all of you. And you know, it is interesting. I think that as women, I think as human beings, we can see each other. You know, that's the whole concept of love at first sight. Isn't this like vague romantic thing? It's our souls recognize each other. You know, when we meet people, there are things that kind of click for us because it's stuff that we know. And you know, Danny and I had been together for years, and I felt I knew him. I know who he is. And sometimes I can peek at the real Danny. Like I used to tell him, I love, you know, spending time with you in the morning when we first wake up, because you haven't had time to put your masks on yet. Wow. And so I get the real Danny at that time. And he, you know, I'm sure back then he thought I was a little crazy for saying things like that, but I genuinely felt that, like in the morning, he hasn't had time yet to, you know, get on social media or talk to anybody else where he needs to put up a front or anything. Right now, he is his pure self. And, you know, with the more work that we do together, the more vulnerability, the more honesty that we share, the easier it is for us to connect, because now we're showing up. There's nothing holding us back. You know, these little lies, these things that we don't want to share because we're afraid of being judged or shamed, those hold us back from loving each other that much more openly. And, you know, that's exactly what you guys are doing. It's such an amazing gift for not just the men, but for the women, for the children, because we want our men to show up honestly and vulnerably. We want to love you, you know, and it's one of the things I was telling Danny before is I've been in women's circles, I've been in women's groups, and sometimes it's so sad to me to see how many women have been hurt by men that they're just like begging for the men to show up and do the work. And it's frustrating. And so sometimes these women's groups become male bashing groups, and it's frustrating. And, you know, my best friend and I have talked about being in women's circles and just kind of having to exit the circles because we don't want to be in a man bashing group. Yeah. You know, I understand how much pain he's had to go through to do the things that he's had to do, but the men need to show up. And like you said, we're begging for it.
Yeah. So here's the question. Why are men not showing up in the first place? And the answer to that, in my perspective, is because we have a culture of uninitiated men. And, you know, you just spoke to women's circles, and, you know, women have their own biological initiation. That is the decisive point. This is where my body physiologically goes into womanhood. And for men, we operate a little bit differently. And it's been proven throughout many cultures that young boys need initiation to have like a showing from stepping from boyhood into manhood. And we're missing that culturally. And so Sacred Sons provides these ritual initiations, rites of passage, not only for grown men who, like myself, I didn't have that. My initiation, you know, in our culture, our initiation looks like you can drive a car when you're 16, you can buy a pack of cigarettes when you're 18, and you can buy alcohol when you're 21. Those are like the age initiations that are ingrained in young men's minds. But what about like when we go out into the wilderness with some mentors, with some elders, and I actually go through something together, go through a sweat lodge, go through a vision quest, go through some confrontation, some healthy confrontation that's supported. And that's ultimately supported by love, not from like trying to scare or put fear into men to be responsible, but to show men, hey, you have the capacity within yourself to rise up, to stand up, to show up. And when you do have a place where you need to unload something or ask for some advice or guidance, this is a space to do that. And so that's largely missing from our culture. So these guys come up and show up in your relationship. Hey, what's up? I'm just out here floating. I've never been initiated into anything. I made some money so I can buy you dinner. But that's about as far as I got.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I'll show you and tell you all the things I think you want to hear. And ultimately, this is going to lead nowhere because the depth of that man has not fully been experienced, expressed, or felt. And men need to feel that within themselves so that they know how to show up and hold space for others.
And it's true empowerment as opposed to these fake things. Like you said, this is how much, you know, this is what I do. This is how much money I make. This is what I can buy you. This is, you know, it's coming from a place of lack where it's like, here, I can show you these things to prove my worth. But a true empowered man doesn't need to show anything off. He just is. He just shows up, right?
Presence.
With integrity.
Yeah. Presence.
That's his biggest offering.
Yeah, I'm a father of two. My son Holland just had his first birthday a few days ago, and that's one of the biggest things I've learned through being a father is presence. And Danny, you and I have shared conversations on this, and you know, my kids are 6 and 1. They don't care what I can provide for them in terms of you know, well, toys a little bit, but you know, in terms of that kind of stuff. But what they really want from me is my presence, is me to just be around, to be interested in them, to ask questions, to be a reflector for them. And so this is sometimes can be a sticking point for guys because they've not truly been present with themselves, so they don't understand what it feels like to be present for others. And that's a big generalization, but there's an aspect to it, especially within fatherhood and within romantic relationship, where presence is it's something that we actually have to work on. We have to actively work on how to be present. And we do that in these circles with men. So we're like, okay, we got this. We've been trained up, and now we can go home and put this into practice.
Yes. I mean, Danny and I used to, we still joke about this sometimes, but there was a time where he would say, I only hear about 50% of what you actually say. The other stuff, like, I'm not really always paying attention. And I mean, at least he was honest about that. But I was like, oh my God, this is like, what are you doing then?
I think we're up to about 80%.
Yeah, yes, it's definitely improved a lot.
So I'll give a very simple example here, because we're saying a lot of these concepts. And when I say, hey, we're sitting in a circle, we're creating a safe space, this is now something that we can go home and do. You know, we can go home in our partnerships and put the kids to bed and light the sage and create a space to just have a conversation that has nothing to do with the schedule or with work or with finances. And so can we create that space to bring into our own homes? And this is where the sovereignty comes in for me. So this isn't about waiting for someone to come and save us or save our relationship. This is about taking full responsibility. You guys have a commitment between each other. So like speaking about that commitment, what does our love mean to each other? Like, can we create a space to have these type of conversations that go really deep, and not just do it, you know, between dinner and bedtime? You know, like actually creating the space to do that. I think it's super healthy and actually creates sovereignty within the relationship.
Yeah, we actually have a daily ritual where we do that, where we kind of take time, usually about 10, 15 minutes at least, where we spend that time together and we're just talking. And it's pretty much almost every single day that we do that. And it's been we've been doing that our whole relationship. Yeah. At times that 15 minutes was spent arguing and turned into hours worth of arguing. But now, because especially for me, being able to let go of a lot of the shame, I can be radically vulnerable with her because I'm not afraid of being judged by her. I do understand that she loves me unconditionally, and I now love myself unconditionally. And so now I can even this morning, last night, while I was trying to go to sleep, I had some things pop up that I kind of struggled with, and I did a meditation. And this morning I was able to share with her. And it's something that, like, it wasn't a thought that I would share with many people, right? But it was something deep that, like, most people, like even a year ago, I would have had a lot of shame, and I probably would have kept it to myself for days, weeks, months before it bubbled to the surface in a way, came out sideways, like you said, and then I would have had to have dealt with it. But I was able to deal with it very simply. I expressed it to her this morning, and that was it. It was over. So.
And I think that, you know, over the course of our relationship, when we went to really dark places, a lot of it was stuff that was just bubbling there. It was festering in constantly, where we were just, you know, he was afraid to say something to me and he would keep it to himself, and then maybe later have another thing, that another layer added to it. And it just kept building up and building up. Me, I talk about my feelings and my emotions all the time. And there would be moments in our arguments where Danny would say, you think I don't have feelings like this? That I just don't I'm just not going to tell you every single time I feel it. And I would say, well, why not? You know, I'm here for that. I'm here to support you in those emotions. Let's talk through it. Let's work it out.
You're like, this is where I thrive, Danny. Bring it. I thrive in this, Danny. Bring it on.
Yes.
It was my own shame and me judging myself that would not let me express it.
And so because he was afraid of being, you know, I was always so confused. And I always joke that I'm like, I thrive in the shadow work. Like this is my jam. I love doing shadow work.
And I've always been afraid of it. I don't want to face the uncomfortable feelings. I want to bypass them. And so that has been a huge part of my work, is coming into that.
Yeah. For me, you know, I thrive in holding a safe space for others. I really appreciate being in that role. And what happened for me is as I was getting more and more involved in men's work, you know, there's a funny story I tell where I was holding a brother's feet, you know, sometimes we'll hold a man's feet to the ground to kind of ground him as he's standing and talking. May sound weird, whatever. But, you know, as this brother was going through his own process and speaking to his story, I'm holding his feet and I'm doing my best to listen. And at the same time as I'm listening and drifting into my own thoughts while holding this sweaty, stinky feet, I was like, if I can stand here and hold space for my brother like this, why can't I hold space for my woman when she's crying and that she needs me to stand and hold it? Or for my children, when they really just need me to be there and to hold them. And so that's what I'm saying. Like when we do this men's work, or what we call masculine alchemy, it's really training us to understand that as men, we have the capacity to hold that space, and it's a different type of nurturing that we have. It's command, it's power, it's presence, and it's trust. And men have this, we really have it, and we just need healthy outlets to train and to practice.
Absolutely. And I experienced it firsthand, and it is a beautiful thing. And you know what? It's not scary. It's a little intimidating going in at first.
Oh, we're all shaking in there, bro. It's scary.
But then it just starts to flow and you feel so comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
So, and then it's just like a roller coaster ride, and it's hard work, but also a lot of fun. So I don't want anybody to think like, oh, these retreats, it's like going to a therapist for a week. No, there's a lot of fun. We had a great time, but we're also doing a lot of important work while we do it.
Yeah. And on top of it, it's all connection. We eat a lot on Maui, especially. We eat some really great food, and we're in a really beautiful place. We have some amazing excursions to, you know, waterfalls, all the really good stuff. And we keep it sacred. And so it's not like we're just going to go play in the waterfall and splash around. It's like our brother Kale, who's native to Maui, you know, he guides us in a prayerful way, in a silent hike, with intention. Everything that we do on these weekends is done with intention. And so that's where the spiritual element comes into play. And I think this is another aspect of our daily lives where we're not showing up in intention. We're kind of going through the motions, but not really honoring the why and the importance of why we're doing what we're doing. So no matter what it is, it's like we allow these men to move through these weekends with deep intention. We go back into our own lives, and as we integrate these things, we move through our own lives with much more intention. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, makes perfect sense because I lived it.
Yeah, and there's many different ways that can look, you know, between all of the different pillars. But it's important that men get their feet on the earth, that we drink clean water, that we get the sunlight, and that we get the brotherhood connection.
Amen. Yeah, I'd love to play this "All of You is Welcome Here" video. I think it's really powerful, and it'll give a really like good tease of what's in
So, can I give it a little preface before you play it? So everything that we've just said sounds very loving and very soft. And when I'm saying that we are initiating men, watch this video and understand that this is a ceremony. What you're doing is a ceremony. It's a celebratory ceremony. And when we say these words, all of you is welcome, this is something that we say to every man. It's one of the first things I actually say to them is that thank you for doing this work with us. All of you is welcome here. And this is a sentence that I hope every man, woman, and child on this planet gets to hear at some point in their lifetime, that no matter what, all of you is welcome. And like, let's do this deep work together.
I hope.
Brothers, all of you is welcome here. Your warrior, your lover, your magician, your king. Rise with us. Heal with us. Lead with us. Join us for the embodied masculine experience.
Look at all
that looks amazing.
I cannot wait for Convergence this spring, man.
Yeah. What do you see in that when you see that video, Vanessa? All these shirtless men out in the desert celebrating and in whatever ways. What does that bring up for you?
I think these are the men that women are waiting for. These are the men that women have been asking for, that are and it's not to say we're damsels in distress waiting for men to come save us. We're waiting for you guys to show up with us, to walk with us. We live in a society where we've given up our power over to, the government's going to save us. The medical industry is going to save us. Everybody else is going to save us. And then we're stripped of all of our power. We're stripped of our connection to each other. I mean, that's how society has been conditioned over the years. And I think many of us are in a place where we want to come back to connection, where there are women that are like, I need a partner that's going to stand up with me, that's going to rise up with me, that's going to, is going to support me in what I'm doing, and I'm going to support my partner as well. But if that partner's not showing up, then, so to see these guys doing, there with their work, with the passion is what comes through so spectacularly and beautifully. And I'm excited. I'm excited for you to go.
Yeah. I love all of that. And what it is for me as well is, and I want to be really clear with this. We're not trying to convert someone to being a sacred son. You don't have to grow your hair out and get tattoos to come be with us. What we're after is there's a siren going by. What we're after is your best and highest and most authentic expression. So come as you are. All of you is welcome. And let's bring some of that gold to the surface. Let's remove some of that shadow and let's fill that up with your own light. Because, I just want to be really clear, what we do is not dogmatic. And it's not just me. Like I said, there's 2 other co-founders, and we have a lot of great facilitators and teachers who contribute to this work. And for the men and women who are wanting their men to attend, just know that we are going to get to the core of this brother's authentic self. And that's what the world is asking him to be, is his most authentic.
Amen. We have somebody asking, where does this retreat take place? Convergence takes place outside of San Diego, and Maui Prime obviously is in Maui. But from what I understand, you have other events happening in other cities as well, right?
Yes. So we have local Sacred Sons men's circles, both online Zoom calls and in-person circles that are happening in Buffalo, New York, in Atlanta, Los Angeles, San Diego, Portland, and Seattle. And so we're kind of doing our little global takeover here. And so for
the group here in Brooklyn,
and you have a group in Brooklyn. Excellent. There's also a London chapter popping off, but the embodied masculine experience where we're bringing our team of facilitators and we're holding space for a group of 30 men, that is coming to San Diego actually this weekend. The 28th through 31st, we have the embodied masculine experience San Diego. Next, it's going to Tucson, Arizona. That's going to be in March. And in May, that experience is going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're bringing the medicine to the brothers who need it in their communities. And one of the ways that we're growing and Sacred Sons is becoming, and you know, previously it was like, hey, we're out here in the desert in California, come do the work with us. And we're slowly and surely flipping that model, because we want to come into the communities where the 30 men or so get together, and they didn't fly from their own individual cities. They're actually in Brooklyn. They're actually in Atlanta. They're actually in Buffalo. So what happens to that community when we get 30 or 40 guys integrated and like, you know, showing up fully, meeting on a regular basis, and creating a culture of community and connection? This is, for me, this is where the work is going, and we're doing it with our youth program as well. We also have a really phenomenal scholarship program that I'm super proud to talk about. It's called the FAM for All Men Scholarship. And our commitment as Sacred Sons is to have 1 in 5 men at every online course or in-person event be scholarshiped. And we typically take BIPOC or financial hardship scholarships. So 1 in every 5 men at all of our offerings is coming through our scholarship program. And yeah, this work is not just for the well-to-do. You know, it's a big part of my mission is to invite all men into this work. And Danny, you can speak to this, but the diversity of these containers is key. It's important that we have men from different backgrounds, different settings, because that makes the work more juicy. It makes the medicine, the brotherhood medicine, that much more powerful.
It creates more empathy. When we have men coming from different walks of life, different cultures, coming together and sharing, and we all have the same intrinsic like traumas and same struggles, and we're all getting together, and it's like, oh, you feel that too? You grew up this way, and oh, you grew up that way. Yeah, and we're all suffering these same things, and now we realize we can do it together. And that just helps create empathy, so that when I'm out on the street, other people that I might have judged as different from me or separate from me, we're all the same. Yeah. So that empathy comes home into your real life, and it's literally life-changing. It's like, I don't know if this sounds like corny, but it really is literally life-changing.
And what you're speaking to specifically with the eye contact, when I go home from one of these weekends and I walk down the street here in San Diego or down by the beach, I look men in their eyes. I find myself more confident to like really see people. And this is something I feel like, man, we're talking about, you know, metaphorical masks, but now that we're in a culture due to the pandemic where we're having literal masks over our face, the eye contact is even more important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, can we acknowledge each other? There's something between acknowledgement, acceptance that we need to do a little bit better job of out here in our different realities, let's just say. And so like coming back with that, like with that fire and that intention that you just spoke to of like, we're all the same. And I see you, can you see me? Kind of a reciprocal piece that's happening. Like that's powerful stuff. And it's very simple, but it's very powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. By the way, everybody, the link to Sacred Sons is in the video description. You can get more information about all their offerings there. Adam, why don't you talk a little bit about the foundation and the fundraiser you're going to be having on Tuesday?
Yeah, let me see. So the Sacred Sons Foundation is our nonprofit arm. And the reason we decided to do that is because we want to bring this work to more men. And so Sacred Sons is a for-profit business. You know, our retreats cost whatever they cost to attend. And we wanted to make it accessible for all men to show up. And so the foundation, we're doing a fundraiser called Our Future for Our Future. And we're doing a free online benefit concert on Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. PST. And we're featuring musical acts, Sam Garrett and Molly Mendoza, who are friends. Rising Appalachia is going to be playing. We have Marco Malbach. Who else do we have playing music? Paul Isaac is going to play some songs, and Marco Malbach is Cocoa Bones. There's going to be some artists that have pieces that we're going to auction off as a part of the benefit. And we're going to have a really powerful opening prayer by Kale Kahi and a closing prayer by Devana May. So this is an event that is for families. It's for men and women to get a. We're like inviting in families now to see behind the curtain of what we do at Sacred Sons by hosting this free online event, and in hopes to raise some money for not only men to attend our events, but for our Sacred Sons youth program, which we're really stoked. We just launched it in 2020. The pandemic hit, and it was the perfect time to launch this online program and getting the youth to connect in these ways as well. So we talk about rites of passage that many men don't have. So creating this online program is in some way, it's a model of a rite of passage for these young men to go through youth mentorship with many of the Sacred Sons facilitators.
What age do you start with the youth program?
We have 2 cohorts. We have an 11 to 14 and then a 15 to 19.
Wow, powerful.
Yeah, and those are led by our brother Trevor Spring. He's on Oahu, Hawaii. Trevor comes from a long background of doing youth mentorship, physical training, and all types of sports-related education. And so he's been at the forefront developing our youth program. And the intent and the idea is that ultimately we're going to be doing rites of passage weekends with youth and mentors, as well as father-sons retreats, which I think will be really powerful. And so this fundraiser is really just giving us the ability to bring these things through. The other thing I know about men is we like to contribute, and we can really make things happen. And what's been happening with Sacred Sons and why we've been able to get so many of these programs off the ground and launched in a really powerful and successful way is because of the willingness and the wanting of men to contribute and wanting to show up as mentors, wanting to show up in these different ways to give back. And I think it's important that as we do this work with the Sacred Sons Foundation, we're going to find new and creative ways to give back, primarily to the youth. And I have some other things down the line that will include women, children, and families, because where this is going, it's not limited to men's work or men's healing. Where we're going is actually like for families and to be inclusive of community. But before we do that, we got to get the men right. Simple as that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So join us on Tuesday. I'll be emceeing or hosting it. And like I said, we have some amazing musical guests. We're going to show some beautiful art. Kale is going to, just show up for the opening prayer and drop in, to feel the vibe of what we're doing, what we're cultivating here. It's absolutely free. You don't have to donate to show up and be a part of it. You're probably going to hear a lot of Sacred Sons talk, and that's great. But show up and celebrate with us. It's a part of the thing that we do best that I don't feel like we talk about enough is like we really do a good job of celebrating. You know what I mean? And in our culture and what's going on in the world, there hasn't been a lot of that, especially this past year. So I think it's important to create an optimistic outlook on our future. And as leaders within our communities, it's important that we envision a future that's better, not a future that we're not stoked to go into. So let's continue envisioning a better and greater future for ourselves. And that's I think what you're going to get out of Tuesday's event.
Awesome. Adam, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure to have you. I miss you, brother. I really do. I want another big Lionheart hug. I can't wait to see you again.
I can't wait to see you again, man. And if you're coming to Convergence, I'll just drop it here. Convergence is going to be in late April. We're going to be announcing the dates in the next few weeks. But the Convergence is our crown jewel event. So this is a gathering that's happening in Jacumba, California, and this is where we really bring it all to the table. We bring all of our facilitators. It's a convergence for us as well, just to see each other. And like Danny, you've been a part of different offerings. So this is a convergence for us to reconnect. And so we do an annual piece where all the brothers can get together.
I'm so excited. I'm so stoked. I cannot wait.
Yes.
As we go out, I'm going to play the foundation promo video to give people more information about that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everything that you've given us. Wow. I am so appreciative. I don't have the words to thank you.
Yeah. Received. You're welcome. And I love your story. I'm like so appreciative of the way that you guys put your relationship out there. And I was so honored to see you guys get married on Maui after Danny and I connected through our podcast. We had talked about this episode I recorded with Kale, and then all of a sudden Danny's in Maui with us, and now your friends in Kale's marrying you. Like this thread was such a powerful experience, even for me to witness. So I love your love. I love what you guys are creating over there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Love you, brother.
All right. Peace, guys. Much love.
Talk to you soon. Don't go anywhere. Check out this video, and you're really going to love what Sacred Sons is offering. If you have a man in your life, or you are a man, or you have kids and you want to get them involved, check it out. The link is in the video description. You will not be sorry. No matter what program you decide to get involved in, you will not be sorry. Check out Sacred Sons at sacredsons.com. And here's the video.
Peace, family. My name is Adam Jackson. I'm a co-founder of Sacred Sons, and now the Sacred Sons Foundation is here for our future.
This particular initiative is focused on two groups. We're focused on working with young boys, ages 11 to 19, and providing them scholarships to our youth mentorship program, as well as our FAM program, which is For All Men scholarships for men from the BIPOC community and those with financial hardship to be part of our experiences.
A big part of my mission in co-founding Sacred Sons is to invite in more men of color into this work. Men who want to be leaders within their own lives and their families, within their communities, and ultimately to lead and steward the next generation of young men into our future. So what is our FAM, For All Men commitment? That looks like 1 in 5 men at every Sacred Sons event, every training, every online course is scholarship and funded by you. We need your support to make this a reality. We're already scholarshiping in men. We want to bring this work to everyone that we can reach. Specifically, we're looking for Black, Indigenous, and men of color to join this movement, because together we rise.
The Sons Youth Program is an online program. It's a parents support network. It's a rites of passage experience.
One of our fundamental intentions in all of this work is to come back to the foundations and the fundamentals in being in relationship with masculinity.
Providing access, a door, a window into opportunities for young boys to be part of an experience that they otherwise wouldn't have in their local community.
So your generous donation will support 12 young men to have 6 months sustained of transformative experience, working on supporting these men to lead lives of integrity, to be self-reflective, to learn vulnerability and trust, and learn how to communicate and listen deeply.
With the Sons commitment, we are creating that opportunity for young boys to connect with positive male role models.
To bring the youth back into nature, to have embodied wild experiences for themselves. The age of these young boys that we're going to be bringing out, as we all know, is a very malleable time. And that's the type of time that is very impactful to be spending outside in connection with themselves, in connection with the land.
And this is my ask to you. Make a contribution today for our future, for all men.
No act or contribution is too small in this time. And we ask you to join us, knowing that the future is brighter because young boys and men will be scholarships as part of the Sacred Sons Foundation to our offerings and have the experiences they deserve to be met by other brothers who meet them with love, compassion, and an open heart.
And with the foundation from Sacred Sons, it's about the participation of planting those seeds for the future generations to come. And what's important about these kinds of connections is when you can see yourself as a small part of the bigger story that plays out around you, then you can understand that it's not always about you, and nor should it be. But your ability to contribute is what enhances the overall experience of yourself and all your relationships that you have. And that's where it comes from. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you.
For our future! For our future! For our future! For our future! For our